Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Ghoul Friend Hour. I'm your host, your ghost host, Morgan Fezza. And we have our fellow ghost co host.
I got nothing today, but I'm your
Just
uh
go with the original.
shit. What my co-host that
Toasty
likes?
Ghosty.
I'm the co-host that likes toast, Taylor Jones.
Oh, gosh.
And I am the most of a ghost, Rachel Faust.
And today we have a super kick ass guest, Mr. Dave Juliano.
Juliano. Although I'll
Juliano.
answer to anything, it's always mispronounced.
Really? See, and I always try and I'm always overthinking it. So I'm like, oh, it's got to be like a special pronunciation. I'm like, no, it's just
Juliano is the
Juliano.
most popular, honestly.
Yeah.
That is the one or Giuliani. All weekend I was called Giuliani at a show. And
Really?
I just answered to it. It's easier that way. It's just easier that way.
Well, we are, no matter what your name is, we are just so excited to have you on today. So we're going to pass the torch to you and just have you tell us a little bit about yourself.
That's hard. I'll try to keep it short because the list goes 38. I've been in the field 38 years. I started the very first paranormal website on the internet, the Shadowlands. It's actually the 30th anniversary. Yeah, 30th anniversary of it. So the first ghost page, the first Bigfoot page, the first cryptid page, all that.
That's so cool.
The OG.
So I've been a co-director of South Jersey Ghost Research for 26 years. And that group goes back to 1955. I almost never say I'm a demonologist, but people were calling me a demonologist on the weekend, so I'll just go with that too. I handle demonic cases primarily now. I'll still do regular cases when it's when I'm needed. My team will usually handle that without me. And doing events and classes and things like that, trying to pay it forward. And all the people who taught me, all the people who have been doing it a lot longer who took me under their wing. I was fortunate enough to train with people that put me on this path, I guess. I would have never guessed I was going to end up doing, exorcisms and, demonic cases and things like that. It's not a choice. It's not something I would have picked out in high school as my career path.
And that's so funny that you say that because we have had a couple of priests on here. We had Bishop James Long, and then we had Father Lampert, and they all have consecutively said the same thing when it comes to a profession like that, is that it really is like you're chosen. That's something that just, it ends up coming across your plate. It's an undeniable kind of path. So I kind of was reading a little bit about you, and I know that your paranormal history started when you were about 3 years old, and it went on for quite some time. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I guess I was trained from 3 years old on. At 3, I woke up one night and there was a baby in my bed, still in the the little gown they give them, and no hands sticking out. The hands were sewn up, which I did not know. They used to do that years ago, so the baby wouldn't scratch them. But one day I was describing it, and someone knew exactly what that was. So I went up and woke up my dad, and he told me to shut up and go back to bed. And it was still there, so I grabbed the pillow and jumped on top, and I don't remember anything after that. I must have passed out or something. I just I did see that spirit now for 26 years.
Okay.
Now there were other things there too. Some were there, and I was just sensitive enough to pick them up. Others I kind of drew in inadvertently. I thought I had scared away some of the spirits by telling them to stop scaring me, and then the activity stopped. So I thought maybe someone was telling me maybe they needed help. So I got that whole thing in my mind. Let's call them back in. But when I invited them back in, I didn't specify. I just invited things back in. So I basically opened the door to anything that wanted to come through. And there was, a few nasty spirits that came through. So I was tormented and attacked for about 2 years. And then it just stopped. I mean, I did what my neighbor told me to do. She told me to get out the Bible. She said, give me specific things to read and say out loud. She was very into spiritual stuff, and she's the one that told me all about how to handle the spirits. I did that, and I kind of just turned my back and didn't pay attention to it anymore. Because you get to the point where you're that fed up, and it's either make or break. They're either going to break you, or you're going to walk away. And in that case, I got lucky again. I acted the right way without being trained or anything. It was sheer luck. But that stuff never goes away. It just waits for you to screw up or give it another opening, and it'll come right back, which it did.
Okay. And so I guess that kind of brings me to my next question is to you, because I feel like everybody has had different experiences with negative entities or demonic entities, whatever you want to call them. Um, what are the openings? Like, what are certain things that you have found, not only from your personal experience, but from the cases that you've worked that are doorways to these kinds of experiences?
Unfortunately, it's very simple to open a door. A lot of us just do it without even thinking. All of us have done something that bends our moral compass, that we look back on and we go, that wasn't right. Whether you stole a toy from your friend, you grabbed a piece of gum in the candy store when you were little, just that little thing can give just a little crack in the door. And as you do little things like that over and over again, tell a lie, any of that stuff that really is against what you would normally, point true north on, that can keep cracking the door open enough where if something I guess you're interesting enough of a target, it can come after you. Now, if you're sensitive and psychic, you're on the menu because you're already open, and you open yourself up all the time. And a lot of people don't realize that you need to do some kind of psychic protection when you do that. A filter, so like a coffee filter, so only the good stuff comes through and all the bad stuff gets caught up out. If people don't do that, they are asking almost, or giving permission for something to come in. So like in that case, you have a psychic that goes to places like asylums, old prisons, places like that, and opens up to try to, find something there. There's no happy spirits in those places. And like attracts like. So if there's a place that's really depressing with angry or sad spirits, something negative is going to be drawn there. So now you're in that location with all that negativity to begin with, and then you open up. You not only take in all that negative energy from the spirits, you now are open for something else to come through, and you open the door. And without, most people aren't realizing that that's what they're doing. There's very few people that do it on purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had people that were, we didn't have to dig around too much. I had people who have committed murders and rapes, and those people will just confess that right away. And then you know exactly what the problem is.
Yeah.
But they have to kind of let that go, and they have to, want to be forgiven for it. Really want to turn away from that, because they give it permission. They have to relinquish that permission. If they don't, there's nothing anyone can do.
Okay. So interesting. And I did ask this question to both Father Vincent Lamper and Bishop James Long. I have a theory that people who maybe have not received help for possible, whether it's possession, oppression, whatever stage, that they may be in under influence, I think there's so much, I feel like you see so much evil kind of going on in the world. And I've always been curious to get different takes on this theory that there are potentially like true like demons kind of walking amongst us and influencing, some of these heinous true crimes that we read about, some of these just things that go on that are just incomprehensible. So like, what is your take on that?
I have what they call discernment, and it's supposed to be like a gift,
Mhm.
but you can't give it back. it allows you to see true nature of some spirits. It's not all the time, but that means I can be walking down the street or have a car pull up next to me, and the person I see is not a person. It's whether it's just twisted face or just things and that's not human. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's really grotesque and something animalistic, but I can see them anywhere.
Wow.
That's spooky.
So it is everywhere, and we touched on like the true crime. There's some innocence in a lot of those crimes, and I think a lot of the places that have people in mental wards and in prison probably is due to influence of demonic spirits.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of where my brain has gone to, because I also, another like thing that I've always picked up on since I was a young child was my husband knows I have this, it's like a fear. I have a thing with eyes. I'm very big on, like, when I meet somebody, it's not about the shaking of hands, it's not about like that physical connection, but if I look into your eyes, I feel like I can just, there's certain people that have like these just dark, like, shark eyes, like there's just something about them that's just not human, not natural, and I've never understood how to kind of explain that. So I've always just said, like, I did not connect with that person. Like, they had shark eyes, like that. Just, I don't know, something about them threw me off. It was very odd. And so, like, it like had got my wheels turning, and I'm like, certain true crime documentaries that I've watched, or just things that you've seen, whether it be on social media, et cetera, et cetera, I've seen those same eyes, and I'm like, I don't think that there's a person there anymore. Like, I don't know if there, at some point there was, and then you hear about people who are like, families talking about them. They were, even as a teenager, they were fine, and then all of a just sudden, like, they're in their 30s, 40s, and they just snap. And this is that very special case where they weren't showing any kinds of, early symptoms or signs. It just seemed like it happened overnight. And it's like, there's a difference. And I don't know how to explain that, but in their eyes, like, and I've always been like, okay, I don't think that's a human. I don't think that human is there anymore. So I always like to ask that question.
There's that old saying of, the eyes are the windows to the soul. And that's one of the places I look too, with the eyes. Now I'm looking for other things, like, are they blinking? Because you can't stop blinking. If you're stopping blinking, there's not someone there. It's something else.
Yeah.
But you can tell by the darkness of the eyes, or even just, I understand how it's hard to describe. Sometimes you just know that you're looking at someone, and whatever's looking back isn't what's supposed to be there. Or you're looking straight back and there's nothing behind that. Just like looking through a window into an empty house.
Yeah.
But you just, and it's that gut feeling. And that's kind of what discernment does too, where you kind of just know when I don't see auras all the time. The only time I see them is when I go up to someone it's like jet black, like this black fog all around them. And I know that, okay, I won't even shake hands with them.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to have I'll keep my distance, because I don't want to get, contaminated, I guess is a good word.
It's a good word. Yeah.
But there's people, even people that I may see around that, are in like political jobs, or in charge of companies, or in important positions. I've encountered people like that had that black cloud around them. And whether it's just that they're under oppression, or they're just being influenced and going along with it, I don't know.
Scary. It's scary. I don't even know the right word to say, but it's I always think when it comes to things like that, like, one of the most, I guess, prolific people that I've seen it with, and they've always just run a chill down my spine, was Richard Ramirez. And he was one of the most vile, like, heinous creatures. And I just think it's, strange, because certain more low profile members of his family, had talked about how he wasn't always like that. And it was like, when you really kind of delve into that and you look at his case, from where he was to all of a sudden how upside down he went, and then that look in his eyes, just there's something about that, and that's really like it's one of the first ones that I think of when I think of that kind of influence, and it's just really scary because I feel like you're seeing it more often, and I don't know.
You still have to rule out mental illness. So that's
Yes.
a big part of it, because sometimes it's almost impossible to tell the difference. So, do people that have severe mental illness also have those like dead eyes? For instance, do people that have severe mental illness because everything's just so topsy turvy and twisted? Do they have like that black aura around them? I dealt with, obviously, doing what I'm doing. I'm going to deal with a lot of people who have mental illness from some degree, and obviously they're actually more likely to have stuff happen to them because they're easier targets.
Yeah.
They don't have the willpower to fight back necessarily, so it's easy to come in and do what they want. So someone might have, even if it's something small, but that gets worse and worse. Like depression's getting worse over time. That may finally give the entity a chance to jump in, and that's why it appears sudden. But a lot of people will just brush it off because they know, okay, this person's got severe depression. That's what the problem is, and that is a problem, but that doesn't mean there's no other problem there. You have to learn you have to find out where the mental illness stops and where any spiritual stuff begins. And it's a lot of detective work and a lot of trying to figure things out. And sometimes it is impossible. And in those cases, I won't do anything because if it is all mental illness, I don't want to make anything worse. So I'd rather err on the side of caution than go in with someone that, do an exorcism, someone who just really needs therapy or needs to be on a medication. Because I'm not helping any of the stuff that they're creating as part of the mental illness. I'm now encouraging that. So it's a tight wire we really walk.
Yeah, absolutely. And I honestly, I'd love to get like everybody's take on this collectively, but I don't know. Have you seen the new movie Nefarious?
Yes, I have.
What were your thoughts on it?
I've watched it twice already.
Okay.
And I've had 2 conversations that I know 100% I was talking to a demon.
Okay.
And Nefarious reminded me of some of the things, but the tone, some of the comments, the attitude. I had a big religious debate with one spirit. The guy walked into my store, and the store was full. So I had all these people in there, so I kind of like took him to the side and just started talking to keep him busy, so other people that I got a hold of could come and give me a hand. So we're talking about different aspects of religion and different things. But is this true? Is this not true? Did you really get thrown out of heaven? I mean, really going into deep stuff and having like a real interesting conversation. But his answers were just like Nefarious, the cockiness, the smart alecky kind of stuff. That
I saw that movie, and I mean, we're horror junkies here, so we have all seen our fair share of horror movies. And I will say, in my own personal opinion, it was the first horror movie, and even though it came from a Christian line, because a lot of people are like, oh, Christian lines, like they're going to push their agenda, and I'm like, I don't think that's always the truth. I don't necessarily agree with that. There were some, I think messages there, but overall, it was probably the most accurate. And watching it, like I was like, this feels familiar. Like this is what you sometimes see in people, and what definitely resembles what I would assume somebody that is under the influence would display, those kinds of actions and behaviors. And it honestly was probably the first scary movie that I thought about it for like a week or two after the fact, and I was like, let me just watch that again, and like let me make sure I got that right, because it was just so like, I don't know, it was definitely spine chilling, because the way that personality changes there, and just that cunning, like I don't know, that very like narcissistic-y. I don't know if I have the right words for it. It was just eerie.
He was
It was
toying.
creepy.
He was toying with the truth, pretty much.
Yes. Yes. So I just had to ask you that because since we're on the topic and kind of talking about, demons walking amongst us, it was a theory I had before that movie came out. When it came out, I was like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. So I kind of want to chat a little bit about some of your cases. Some of the things that you have experienced, obviously, keep it as minimal or as, detailed as you can. Whatever you feel comfortable with, but just hearing about some of like the real life symptoms and behaviors that you've witnessed on exorcisms or cases that you've been called to.
Um, let's see. Oh, before I forget, the movie reference, Emily Rose, The Exorcism Emily Rose, is the most accurate I've ever seen out of all the
Yeah.
movies. So that's a good one. I make all my new members watch that so they can get an idea, because there's a lot of little tips and tricks in there that you can pick up on. It's almost like a little training. If I could make a training video, that would be probably it.
Okay, and that was based on oh gosh, I'm gonna forget her name now. The one that went very, very wrong, where they is it Anne?
It's like Emily Rose, but it's Annalise Michelle, I think.
Annalise McKell. I couldn't remember. I was like, I know it's Anne something. But yeah, Annalise McKell, because I remember seeing the pictures from that, and then it was I think it was Bishop James Long that told me that was what that was based off of, as well as one of my other favorite movies is The Right.
That's another one I tell them to watch.
Love The Right. Another one that when I watched it, I was like, this feels like accurate.
And I've been in that exact situation where they believed they were being attacked by a demon, but they were raised Roman Catholics. They no longer believed in God. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what? If you believe in the devil, you have to believe in the other. It's two-sided. There's good and bad. You can't just believe bad and that's it. And this person was still praying to Saint Michael and to Mary. And I even went to extremes and say, well, Mary was just a woman, and Saint Michael doesn't exist. He's like a fairy, fairy with wings, not a real thing, because there's no God, so he couldn't have been created. Mary couldn't have done anything special. There's no God, so she was just a lady who had a baby, and that's it. And even trying to just rationalize that down, it's tough. It's tough to get them. What seems like it would be obvious that it has to be one or the other, and I think that's part of the attack. They really they break down your faith or whatever you believe in so much that in your mind it makes sense that there's no God, even though there's the other side.
Yeah.
And at that point, that was someone that we went into it after the church had been involved, and the church sent her to 3 different psychologists for psych evaluations.
Okay.
We got copies of all of them. It wasn't unanimous. Some said that she had mental illness. One of them said it wasn't any kind of mental illness he had ever seen. Going along with a lot of the spiritual things that were happening, just listening to the whole story, I guess the other ones may have went in and assumed it was, and not listened. This guy, he was a little more detailed in his notes why he thought it may be something more. But in the end, we tried an exorcism, but she wouldn't believe. She believed that this thing was there and was always going to be there. And if you believe that, there's no one that can help you. And the thing that you'd be calling in to help, she doesn't believe in. So like intention and faith and belief in something is important. Otherwise, there's nothing to pull from to help them. There's no anchor for them.
Yeah.
And without that, it's almost pointless doing anything. I know people do go and do more, but you really are. You're not doing anything to help, and you could probably be more detrimental than anything else. So she wound up moving to California, and someone out there helped her, And last time we heard from her, she said she was doing good.
Oh,
So,
good.
hopefully she is still. Someone
Yeah.
was able to crack through and make sense, and that's okay. It's I don't have the ego where if I can't help, I want them to go get help someplace else.
Yeah.
You know, you have to realize when something may not be something you can handle, or something that you think you'd be a good fit for. That's where you're not making that connection with the person. I'm glad to hand them up to someone else that that can make that connection and help them better. I don't think I can walk around and help everybody, because that's just simply not the case.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Although
And
we know people in the paranormal that think that way. So
which is, it's unfortunate because it just creates much bigger issues. It's a snowball. Um, but one of the other things that I kind of wanted to ask, obviously, I think a lot of investigators' fears, and especially maybe not necessarily like exorcist fears, because once you guys have kind of had that experience with an exorcism, or even just dealing with a negative entity or a demonic entity, you kind of know that a lot of it is just parlor tricks. But one of the biggest concerns that I always hear is people are always terrified that if they start to get involved, or they start to help, or they start to investigate a certain place that may be low vibration, that they are either going to be attacked and bring something home with them, or you know, get an attachment that maybe they don't realize is there until down the road. Have you had that experience yourself from being so involved and doing the work?
the people that think that should never go anywhere
Yeah.
ever, because it's the law of attraction. You think that you're going to have that come. You're asking it to come along.
Yeah.
You're already in a negative frame of mind because you're scared. Um, yes, I deal with attachments with people all the time. Um, they're sometimes more difficult than dealing with demonic spirits, because with the demonic stuff, there seems to be rules. There's some
Mhm.
ground rules. It's like, you know, warfare back in the, 1800s, where they had the rules of war where you had to do one thing or the other. It's kind of like that a little bit. But with an attachment, you don't know where it is, where it came from, what it is. So you really have no place to start from.
Yeah.
But it's very easy for people to get attachments anywhere. I
Yeah.
tell people, practice some kind of protection. I call it, instead of psychic protection, because that freaks people out, I call it like paranormal self-defense.
There you go. I like that.
You should do it even all day long. When you're at work, when you're out somewhere, you could be around people that you don't want to brush up against and have that stuff, and then you're coming home with it. And
Yeah.
if you don't do any kind of cleansing on yourself, then you're walking around with it. And how much does it take to build up enough of that like sludge or that dirt on you where now something negative attaches to it?
Yeah.
So it's unfortunately that does happen.
Yeah.
So, and it can go to the extreme. I've had some exorcisms performed on me
Okay.
because of places that I went. And my first one was it was before I was really doing any of the negative stuff.
Okay.
But I had a very angry ex-girlfriend, and it seemed like even angrier. Her mother was even angrier. So she was already dabbling with dark stuff. So she was summoning things, and the mother was also doing some black magic on top of it. And they sent something to my house, and it was attacking me, bothering me. It was always around there. So I actually had my people in my team come out and try to get rid of it, and they didn't know what they were doing. We just thought, well, we read these books. It looks like it's simple enough. Let's try it. And all we did was the thing that had bothered me in my parents' house growing up and waiting for that opportunity. It now saw an opportunity. So it jumped into and played pile on. So because of that, I had to go up to Connecticut, to meet with John Zaffis's team. John's been like a friend for over 20 years. He's one of the people that I've learned a lot from. But I went up there and they took care of me. And I was embarrassed at first. And he said, "You'd be surprised how many paranormal investigators, we deal with." And even ones that were later ones that I felt like I felt fine, but I let them come down and do stuff because it's always good to have a little touch up. And
Yeah.
that's what they said. It's like it's going through the car wash, or cleaning
A
off anything,
spiritual car wash. I love it.
getting rid of anything you might not have picked up on that's around you. Getting rid of it for a bit, and you're good to go. Get back out there.
Yeah.
So, but the people who don't realize that can really be in danger because they're bringing the stuff home. So the people who are going, I when I run events, people come drunk sometimes, and that's like super dangerous. Just you're going to fall down the stairs and break your neck. But besides that, you're in a negative frame of mind. If bad stuff is there, you're probably joking around with it and maybe provoking, and you invite it home, and that you bring it home to your family, and you've walked in the door with it, so now it has permission to be there.
Mm.
You gave it basically written permission to attack you and your family, and unfortunately, it can be that easy.
That's crazy to me. Like, it's just because I mean, it's funny because it's like we all, I think we're pretty familiar with the paranormal at this point, and that the possibility is there. Like, it's out there, and you try and avoid it as much as possible and keep yourself safe. Some of the stories that I've heard are quite crazy, especially I had recently read Daryl Marston's book, Horrors of the House of Wills, and I was like, this reminds me of like House on Haunted Hill. Like, the just amount of entities that probably reside in that place, just the constant ever evolving energy that's going on in there. And then I kind of put the book down. I was like, wow, that was really creepy. We ended up going to Penhurst Paracon, and the Ghost Brothers were like, so they got asked in a Q&A, what was like this probably like the scariest place that you've ever been, and they were like, the House of Wolves. And so I kind of wanted to talk to you about locations, because there's some locations that seem to come up in the paranormal community that seem to have a very low vibrational connection. Have you ever been to the House of Wolves?
No.
Okay.
There are a lot of locations like that. I think most of the ones I've experienced, not including private cases, places that you would think were going to have the low vibrations. Really, probably I think the most uncomfortable would probably be a tie for Eastern State Penitentiary and Moundsville.
Oh, what's Moundsville?
West Virginia State Pen.
Oh, of course, West Virginia. That's a creepy ass state.
Being in their death row, or not their death row, well, it was part of their death row actually. Some of the cell blocks where some of the murders happened that they're aware of, murderers murdering each other in prison. There was definitely something that made me not want to spend a lot of time in certain areas, or just walk past it and keep going. Now I just thought of a scarier time at Penhurst. It was my first time at Penhurst actually, and I thought I was prepared, but we were on the first floor of Mayflower, and we had been told about some of at night. It was basically the people there ruled. The guards, the nurses didn't really do anything, and the way it's laid out, somewhere in a lot of rooms, you can't see the whole room, or even half of it from where a nurse would be stationed or anything like that. So in the bathrooms, that was where a lot of the abuse, the sexual abuse and things would happen. And it was basically, there's one way in and one way out, a very narrow doorway. So, of course, one of the first places I went in without even thinking about that was go and sit in there and, put my equipment out. And within 10 minutes, it got really, really dark. I'm like unnaturally dark. Couldn't see. If I put my hand up, I couldn't see that. I couldn't see any of my equipment. Didn't matter if I turned on the flashlight, that wasn't working. So my heart started beating a little faster. And one of my team that was there yelled in just to check. And I'm like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, come and get me." And I think that's the only time I've said no, I wasn't okay before. That's the only time I've ever asked someone to come and get me. And as soon as she came in, it was like she pushed away the fog and everything was normal again.
What?
So I've been at Penhurst like 50 times because I used to run events there. I never went back in any of the bathrooms.
Do you know what's so crazy about that? So I have to add this in because I just came from Penhurst Paracon. And I hope Emily, who's a friend of ours that we met on Investigation, I hope she watches this because we were walking through the halls and I think it might have been the Mayflower building. Um, I'm not really sure what building it was, but it was like the first building that you walk through. And we're walking through, and I stopped in this one particular bathroom, and you can't go across the rope. I leaned my head in, and I was like, this, like, I was getting sick to my stomach, and I was like, something happened there. I don't know what that's about, but I was like, this is making me like, there's just something about this. There's something there right now. Like, and it's just kind of like observing. And it just made my insides like curl up. And I was like, I don't know too much of the history of Penhurst. I really probably should delve into it, but I like when I go to some of these locations not having the knowledge until I kind of go there a little bit more. And I just got instant chills when you were saying that because I didn't have the darkness, but it was just that immediately like my stomach, like if it could have folded up like a taco, it would have. Like it was just like I was like, "Oh man, I do not like this. I don't know what that is, but
Well, if you ever get a chance, look up the history,
okay.
Detailed history.
Okay.
I'm old enough to remember when the story broke. I even remember the reporter, Bill Baldini. He's the one that broke the story, and there was pictures smuggled out and everything. And what was going on there was probably close to some things that they did in concentration camps. Some of the tortures that they did to people, and that's the only way you can describe it. There was children there that were in their early teens that had never been taken out of a crib, so they couldn't walk yet. If you did anything where you were biting somebody or something like that, something along those lines of being aggressive, they removed all your teeth. So there's just two good examples and a multitude of others that went by. So when people walk in there without realizing what they're walking into, that's where trouble can happen. So that's protecting yourself, whether it's carrying crystals, religious objects, visualizations, prayers, whatever you got to do, whatever makes you feel protected. And then if you're not in your A game, if you're not feeling 100%, you're a little sick, you had a bad day at work or whatever, don't go to these places. Yeah. Because you're not going to suddenly clear up your lousy day and go there and be in a good frame of mind. You're still going to have that with you. And that just gives something an opportunity to, even if it doesn't come home with you, it's going to mess around with you, like it did with me in the bathroom. And it did get to me because I didn't expect it.
Yeah. That's crazy though. Like that, I would be freaked out if that went super dark. Like I need to have like a little bell or something when we go on investigations. I will say, I mean, Taylor, I thought I was pretty brave at Samuel Miller. I think we handled that pretty good.
You were more than fine. You were talking to little girls over there.
Well, have you been to Samuel Miller Mansion yet?
No.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I like it because they're still finding history on it. Like it was one of those places that they had the spiritual experiences prior to really knowing anything about the building. And then so now they're kind of doing personal experience investigations there and keeping track of like just real life, I guess, evidence, like people who are going there, what they're getting. And I will say that was my first time when you were kind of talking about kind of bringing muck home. I would say that was my very first time with an actual, I don't even know if it was truly an attachment, but it was a very oppressive energy that I think was either reaching me or it was following me. And that was our fault because we didn't properly close that out. We kind of just did the Irish goodbye because we were exhausted, which was like total no. So I'm glad that you can kind of speak to that on here, because I think the biggest part of this podcast is really educating young investigators, new investigators, even seasoned investigators, or people just in the paranormal in general, because like I said, you know, and like you said before, it's one of the biggest fears that a lot of people have is, you know, bringing stuff home with you, and it's very real. And having been through that, like, I'll never do that again. That was really stupid.
I think what's amazing about it is there's a lot of people that have that fear, and then you ask them, well, what do they do about it? And they do nothing. It's like, well, it's like, I mean, it's not a surefire thing. I mean, there's a chance you can get bit by a shark by going in the ocean, but that doesn't stop people from going in the ocean. Yeah, so it's just now, if you have a bleeding wound, you know, probably not a good idea even to go out waist deep in the ocean. Yeah, that's a whole different thing. But think of it like that. When you're in that bad mood, you're going in the water bleeding.
Yeah.
So of course you're going to get the interest, at least, of the sharks.
Yeah.
And maybe you look like a good meal. You don't know. So it's why run that chance? Why take that risk?
It's not worth it.
But some people, they hear psychic protection more than they hear anything else. And that right away turns it off. I don't like using the word psychic at all, because people think of like the psychic friends networks on, you call up 800 numbers and stuff. And they don't understand, you know, the history behind it.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't want to go down certain.
No, yeah.
Here.
Absolutely. But so do you mind if
I'll get on my pulpit and start preaching, and
no. Listen, preach away. Like this is why we started this podcast, is because we want to hear, you know, everything. Like we just want to know, you know, your expertise, the things that you have experienced and lived through, and what you can kind of give to our listeners that is going to help them along their journey. Because obviously they're listening to this podcast for a reason. They have some type of interest, and really just the biggest thing for me is knowledge. Like people need to know what happens out there, what goes on, that these things are really real. And it's not something that, like, I've said it a million times before, and I'm sure our listeners will be like, oh my gosh, here she goes again. But you know, people are dabbling way too much, especially like, I love the fact that the supernatural, the paranormal, everything in between has become so much more accepted than it was, you know, when I was younger, because growing up with a sensitivity and a gift, and nobody talked about it. It was very taboo. It was very, you know, like, no, you don't see that. And, you know, like you said, even with your dad, oh, you don't see that, go back to bed. And so now it's very much talked about. But the dangerous side of that, the flip side of the coin, is that it's becoming trendy on TikTok. It's becoming trendy on Instagram. It's becoming trendy everywhere. And it's not being done respectfully. It's not being done the right way. And I think that that's opening a lot of really not good doors.
No, I agree 100%. But people don't realize, if I get on the pulpit here a little bit, when I teach my demonology class, which I give to everybody, that even if there are people in my team that are never going to do that kind of case, they're only going to do private houses and nothing bad. I think every investigator should get that basic knowledge. And kind of the idea of the class is give you the knowledge, but scare the crap out of you too. You know, for the people who raise their hand in the very beginning, say, I want to get into this. So I show them 2 short video clips, like just 60 seconds. Then I ask them if they still want to do this, and at least half the hands don't go up. And then for the people who still have their hand up, I give them the emergency number for Pennsylvania Hospital for the psychiatric ward. Because if your hand's still up and you saw that and you want to still do this, there's something wrong with you. Something in your head is broken. You're not right. Because no one, if you had a bunch of demonologists all in the room saying how many people want to do this, there wouldn't be a hand going up at all.
Yeah.
But what they miss and they don't understand is there are real life, repercussions from what they do. It's not just you go, you have fun there, you provoke or do stupid stuff, and you come home and it's all over. It unfortunately, that's not the case for everybody.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like a supernatural footprint, essentially.
Yeah. I don't wish this on anybody, but it happens. People die. I've had clients that have died. I know people that were doing stuff in the demonologist and priests that died. It happens. Now, again, can you say 100% that's what killed them? No. But under suspicious circumstances, that make you think, yeah, there's a possibility there because maybe they just dabbled too far. Some people willingly bring those demonic spirits in because of the power that they get. I mean, it's one of those things where they'll give you your wildest dreams and superpowers, but the bill comes due eventually, and you're not going to like it when you have to pay. And they don't realize that. They don't realize it's not a game. And I'm on TikTok. I'm addicted because it's my attention span of 10, 15 seconds. But you see the lives on there. And they have things like the portal set up where they're doing the ghost box running through the portal. The portal's called a portal for a reason. Think about it for a moment. I use it too. I don't do it any more than 20 minutes, 30 minutes tops. Then I shut it off. No matter what's coming through, no matter this guy's giving us all this information, we can double check and we know it's legit. I pull the plug because I don't leave that connection open like that. Then I wait again and wait a while before I turn it back on. The people who leave those things on, they'll leave them on for 12 hours just with the camera on it. Well, where is it exactly? You may not be sitting there, but it's probably in your basement or in a room in your house that you got the camera running off of. You are opening something potentially that maybe it's not going to close. Maybe it's just you didn't. Your intention is to have it come through. You want something to come through and communicate with you. That's why you're doing it. So the intention is there. You've set that already. Now you put something out there that enables it. Of course, something could come through. People are so surprised sometimes that when we're telling them, well, this is how it could have come in, and it's like, well, we didn't think of that. It's like some of the stuff is common sense.
Yeah.
There's been cases when I had the physical stores, the Ghost Hunter store. I remember the one in Mount Holly. We had a couple people come in, and I refused to sell them equipment. But they were telling me all about what they do and everything, and it's like I may be a lousy salesman, but I can't in good conscience sell you any equipment because now I know what you're going to do with it. So I'd rather lose the sales and have you walk out, and then hopefully no one else sells your equipment either.
Yeah.
Because sometimes common sense isn't there, or they've watched too much of the TV shows or the wrong YouTube channels. It doesn't take much to get this idea that nothing's happening to them, so it's okay if I do it. Not thinking that maybe nothing's attacking those people on TV, hoping that people see that nothing's happening to them so they can try that too at home. And that's the whole idea. Just as possible. I mean, you have to really think as demented and twisted as you possibly can, because that's how they're going to lure you in when you don't know you're being lured in.
Yeah. That's my spine. I'm like, oh. Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm always like just trying to be over prepared. And so that's why I was like, it was the stupidest thing that we did an Irish goodbye like that. Because that is so me and Taylor.
Well, we weren't expecting to be there that late though. So I think it's because we went in not knowing we were going to be there all night. Yeah. So next time we'll be more prepared.
But this is kind of a little warning to everybody listening. You have now heard Dave talk about it. You have heard that we have suffered the consequences. Luckily, Rachel over here has only had one very scary child experience with the people with the scratched out eyes. So she's doing pretty good over there. Her battery's totally green. But
good to go.
You gotta be careful, man. It's not a game. It's not a game. And so, hot take. This is a hot take question, Dave. Are you ready?
Yep.
Thoughts on Ouija boards?
All right. Ouija boards, The oracle board goes back, to like Egypt, ancient Egypt. It's not the board itself. It's the intent that what you're doing with the board. You could just take and write the alphabet out on a table or this blank piece of paper and use like a glass to go over it. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter. That's the Ouija board. The Ouija board, people are already thinking just by the name and why they've got it, that this is like a telephone to the dead. So their intent, again, is to open up that line of communication. Now they've opened up a portal. Sometimes bad things can come through and they're not going to come through as bad things. They're going to come through as helpful things, or pretending they're going to be, a family member and they know all the right answers that you try to prove that there's somebody. And then your defenses are down and you're interested and you're, invested in the conversations that you're having with that spirit. And that's all it takes. Now the hooks are there. And eventually they don't necessarily need the board to come through anymore. You've opened the door wide enough for it. Now they're there. And that's when maybe the stuff starts. When we go to a house we get a questionnaire and we do a preliminary visit with them where we just sit down and talk to everybody first. If they have a Ouija board, I'm taking it.
Yeah.
If you're not going to give me the Ouija board, and I've offered people money for it, so here's $20. Here, I'll take the board. If they don't want to give up the board at that point, we can't help you. I'm not going to go because they're going to use that board again. So, did you hear that too?
It said stop.
Did it? I heard the static come through. It sounded like a voice.
I literally was going to ask you guys because all of a sudden I just heard stop.
No, I heard it. I heard,
and I was like,
stop.
I was like, I'm sorry. Excuse me, sir. I'm like, we're not doing that. We had a Zoom ghost, a mysterious Zoom ghost.
Wait a minute. Is Rachel frozen?
Yep.
Should we? Oh.
Oh. Hell no.
She wasn't frozen when it said stop. That was weird. I don't know. We're gonna have to play that back.
That was interesting.
Dave, what the heck?
Face and I realized you heard it too.
I was like, I stopped a second. I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna panic. I'm like, I don't know what that was, but that was a little creepy. I wonder if anyone else heard that.
I take the Ouija boards from the people.
Okay.
And then we bind them, and then some people burn them. I don't like that because of a case I had. I throw them in running water.
Wait, so why don't you like to burn them? What is the reason for that?
There was a case I had that this location had people like moving in every 6 months. That's how long people would stay. So obviously that would make me think there's something wrong with the building. But didn't look that way. It looked like a normal house to me when we were there. But they were reporting at different times. They would start talking in different languages. Their eyes would go all black. They'd be running around on all fours. They were threatening to attack each other. And so it became very, very crazy. And we weren't the first group in. The group that went in before us should never have been there. And most of their members should have never gone there. They didn't know they were going into a house like that. They thought they were just going to do a regular investigation. So what started that was they invited a deceased brother or a spirit they thought was the deceased brother into the house with the Ouija board. And when they finally realized they had let something in, they burned the Ouija board out in the front yard in a fire pit. The next morning they woke up, the Ouija board was sitting on the front step. Perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So that always stuck in my mind because that was also a case where I watched scratches appear in front of me. I saw a person lifted up by their throat. Right under here, you could see the fingerprints. And he was a big guy, lifted completely off the couch by his throat. So it was when you see that, nothing there that you can see that's holding him, but you can see the finger impressions on his throat. Yeah, that's one of those moments that's going to like stick in your head. So I've always associated that with the Ouija board burning. So we do the running water thing, and more than half my group lives by a river, so it's easy to get rid of that. And it's the planchette I'm not worried about too much. That's plastic. We throw that in the trash. It's the board itself, and the board's then going to break down to its natural stuff. It's going to go back into nature. So that's the idea. Even with the burning was taking it back to carbon. But I'll always stick with the water.
Rachel is messaging the chat. She said, "You guys," she said, "Do I have a Zoom ghost?" I guess she can't get back on. But yeah, I mean, I always wondered what preferred methods were for disposing of one, because there's, some people will bind it and bury it, and some people are big on burning it. I've always just been weird about not even just Ouija boards, but like there's been certain haunted locations that people are like, oh, we're just gonna burn it down and tear it down. And I just kind of was always worried. Like, I'm like, I don't know for certain, but when something has like a portal, or I don't necessarily believe that the walls are what keep that caged in. Like,
It could be the
so
land too. It definitely could be the land.
yeah, and so, but then there are some places where I'm like, well, if you burn this down, is that gonna let everything out? Like, I feel like my thoughts are conflicted on that. Like, how do you feel about locations, and do spirits kind of come and go? Do like, what is your opinion on that?
It's a case by case thing. It's the spirits involved. It's the location. It's the people there. I guess like Amity, I guess, is a good example. I believe there's stuff still there. It's just not manifesting now because the people aren't the right people yet to come in, or maybe it needs a lot more time before people forgot all about it, and then they could come in, and someone who doesn't know the history of the place and start something. So there are places that it's the land, or it could be the building too. But
Yeah.
burning something down, I don't necessarily think that it eliminates the spirits being there, unless they were, say, it's a house that they built. It's a house that they built, when they lived there their whole lives, and they're still hanging around there because to them that's their heaven. Maybe when it's burned down, they were so attached to just the physical that now they move on.
Okay.
But other ones could just be because they like the area, the property, and they still think of it, that's their land. And the negative stuff, I mean, we never know what happens on a specific plot of ground. People always assume that, well, you're not built on the graveyard, so you're good. It's like, well, what happened? Was there a murder that was never, found years and years ago, and you just happened to build on top of it, and there's that negative spirit around it? Or that this happens to be one that's going up and down the neighborhood and hanging out, waiting for someone, good enough to mess with, and, tag you're it. Yeah. So it really does. Probably it's all of the above. It's a combination of all the different scenarios, whether they're following someone, or they're staying because of the property, or they're leaving because it's burnt down. I think it would be definitely a case by case situation.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense though. So I guess I kind of want to ask, what is one of your favorite places that you've been to? We asked you about the scariest, but what has been your favorite, probably most evidential place that you've been to, that you've gotten some really just hardcore evidence that, I mean, I know that you're sensitive and you can feel these kinds of things, but just irrefutable evidence you're like, hey, if you don't believe, this is going to make you a believer.
The Knickerbocker Hotel in Pennsylvania.
It's always Pennsylvania.
It's up
or West Virginia.
It's up near Ohio, so it's that Ohio, Western Pennsylvania, West Virginia spot where there's too many hauntings all in one little spot.
Yeah.
But the Knickerbocker, I haven't had a time I've gone where we didn't have stuff, and including evidence as well as seeing and feeling things. And that's including people who swear they never ever feel or see anything, have had experiences there. Recorded, we had probably the best disembodied voice I've ever heard before. And we managed to record it on all our devices too. We were up in a bedroom where a woman had died of tuberculosis. So one of our members sat on the bed, and the bed kind of flipped up a little bit, so he jumped up and fixed it. And we're like, oh great, now you just angered her, she that's her bed and everything. And he's like, I'm sorry. Is it okay if I sit in your bed? And he starts sitting down, and you heard, "Go ahead," in a real gruff voice, loud. And we all look at each other like, which one of you did that? I mean, we're like calling each other out. 4 of us had video cameras. So we started reviewing back, because between the 4 of us with the views, you could see everyone's face. No one said it. And it was recorded on everything. And that was like, I was laying on my stomach, like filming in. I jumped up somehow from laying on my stomach to standing. I have no idea how I got from one position to the other. It's like almost instantaneous popping up, because I couldn't believe that just happened. So it's interesting stuff like that that's happening.
Very cool.
It's pretty
Okay.
consistent there.
I'm gonna have to check that out. We may have to check out that location. That's really
I just
neat.
wrote it down.
Okay, good.
we try to do events there every year, and it's I think it should sell out every time, and it doesn't. And I don't know. I guess it doesn't have the name recognition yet, but word of mouth, I think, out there of it should have gotten it to the point where, you could have 12 or 15 people go out there. You have 4 floors if you count the basement, and it's huge.
Oh, God.
And she collects antiques and things like that. So the rooms are some of the rooms are themed. There's one room all World War II stuff. There's one room it's all antique cameras. There's a couple rooms that are dolls and clowns and stuff, which I'm not a fan of. But one's a Lincoln room with all stuff referring to Lincoln and everything. And she'll move the stuff around, so every time you go, there's something different. So you could spend an entire investigation in one room and be happy. And if you try multiple spots, you might get something, and then come back and do those same spots, you'll probably get something else. There's a lot of changes for the way it gets stirred up. It's a really cool place. Definitely my favorite.
Are you guys doing an event there anytime soon?
I think we're going to try to do one in September. We used to do the world's largest ghost hunt when they were doing that. We would do that there, and we usually do one in March and April, but this year just didn't work out. So I go at least once a year.
Okay, cool. You may have to join that. We'll definitely, as long as the date works. I mean, you have another 2 peeps that are willing to ride along for the journey, because I'm always looking to. I want to try out more locations, because I just thought it was our very first one, our only one so far, besides just my gift just being an everyday struggle bus. We went to the Samuel Miller Mansion, and that was my first time really kind of reading and, just using my gifts at a location on top of like our equipment and stuff like that. And it was just really cool to get some like evidence and validation. And so I was like, I can't wait to do this more. Like, I want to see more locations. I want to kind of travel around the US and, get some of the top spots where people have had some really good luck. So that will definitely be on our list.
I think there's an honorable mention, probably close to tying one the top spot, White Hill Mansion in New Jersey.
Like I've heard of that.
It's near Bordentown.
Oh yeah, okay.
That has been on some of the shows. That's another one where it's rarely a night where nothing happens. I just ran a Paracon there. The same day, or no, it was the week before, I think, or 2 weeks before Penhurst. The beginning of May. And Katrina, Heather, and a bunch of people, Brian Cana, were there. But it's been a lot of different things. So it's been like a restaurant. It was a house that dates back to 1723. So there's Revolutionary War stuff, Civil War stuff, Prohibition, speakeasy. There was a tunnel down that led to a downstairs speakeasy leading out to the river.
Speakeasies are my favorite.
It's right on the cliff over the Delaware River. So I mean, it's got a lot of character and history to it, but it's got a lot of activity.
Nice.
That's a closer one than a Knickerbocker.
Did you write that one down, Taylor?
No, I didn't. I got distracted because Rachel just had the spookiest thing that just happened.
Gosh.
She just said she sent a voice message, but the way that I could describe it in words is that she said, all she was hearing was static in her headphones, and she started freaking out. And so she's sitting there, and it started freezing. And for some reason, even though she was frozen, she could hear it say stop. And then she said that her face was frozen, and her mouth started moving, but she wasn't even talking. And then she said that she tried to move the mouse, and it wouldn't move. And then her computer blacked out and turned off.
Oh,
so
that's
she's
good.
trying to get back in.
The minute we started talking about Ouija boards, that's always a good one.
That's interesting. That was an interesting tie in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that if we go back in this video that we can hear that, because that was clear as day, and I'm so glad that we all heard the same thing, because I stopped for a second. I'm like, I was like, I'm not gonna bring it up. I'm gonna let that just slide. I'm not gonna say anything.
I heard it and I was like,
I saw your
face. And I saw your face. I realized she heard it too.
Yeah, I felt better once you were like, you heard that, and I was like, yes, I did. Okay. we'll have to talk with Rachel after this. Maybe we'll phone call her. But yeah, Lauren Hellickson said Juliano comes with ghosts.
I bring them all with me.
Hey, it wouldn't be a Girlfriend Hour podcast if something spooky didn't happen, because when I tell you, every time we do a podcast, without fail, that's why we call it our Zoom ghost, because whenever we would do Zoom, one time I was eating my dinner prior to like getting on, so I hadn't even turned on my screen or anything, and then all of a sudden the voice came over and it was like, what does it say? It's like, you are now recording. And I looked up, I'm literally like, you could tell I was face deep in my taco bowl, like I was just like in there like swimwear, and I was so caught off guard, and I was like, what? And it just kept doing that. But we have weird stuff happen all the time. One time my light turned off, then turned on when we were on with April Bousset. She's a psychic medium. So in true Girlfriend Hour fashion, I'll just take it as a sign of good luck, maybe. Hopefully we're gonna just
you have extra people in the audience.
Yes, I like that. I like the way you put things. I have a lot of phrases I'm going to come away from today with. Like, I like the spiritual car wash. That was probably my favorite.
I always try to make it so people can relate to it. Otherwise, you tend to be talking past people and they're not getting it. But if you give them something like that they can remember, then it sticks with them. And they're going to tell other people, and it's easy to pass it on. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, kind of going back a little bit, because you were talking about your discernment gift, right? With the discernment gift, like, one of the biggest things, because another thing with social media and everything, people are always so quick to jump and be like, it's a D word, it's a D word. And, you know, those seem to be very rare occurrences that it's actually that, versus maybe something that's just a little bit more low vibration, more human, just negative. And then there's just, you know, your typical spirits that are just kind of floating around, maybe mischievous, maybe just kind of residual, you never know. But how do you, like, does your gift help you with being able to tell, you know, kind of right off the bat, like, hey, if you come across something like this is human, this is residual, or like this is something that's negative but it is human, and then this is just a straight up D entity.
When I get called to a case, I don't try to tune in or pick up anything. I try to shut down as much as possible, because I don't want, if there's something there that's bad that pops in just to say hi to me, but it's not what's affecting the people in the house, I could see it, and my discernment would say, okay, well, this is demonic, when it's not. That appeared just for me. So you can't. Okay. I think everyone that's psychic can get tricked that way, where they see spirits in the house and they assume that's the ones that are interacting with the people who live there, and that may not be the case. So I'd rather not have that, you know, come up at all. I'll ask other people what they're thinking, because there's times that you can't help but stuff will just appear that you see, and there's a couple other people on my team that have discernment too, so we'll kind of compare notes a little bit. But unfortunately, because what I do and having that, there's more of the demonic stuff out there than I had thought.
Okay.
I think how things are in the world now, I think that feeds into more of the negativity. So it's almost like the yin yang symbol spinning. There's always more of one color than the other. That
Yeah.
it's a balance, and right now the dark is definitely winning that.
Yeah.
So that just enables it's more gasoline, more fuel for them, make it easier. Because I know we've seen a lot of our cases. Um, we give them flags to tell you the severity of the case. A red flag case would be what most people think of when they're thinking of like a demonic haunting. The next one, there is one higher than that. That's the black flag case. That'd be something that we'd see maybe once every 6 months or so. Now, with the cases that are coming in, it's probably 80% of them are black flag cases, which would involve extreme violence and or uh, sexual assault. So something has changed and swung definitely to the uh, the negative side. And when bad things happen, we always saw spikes and stuff. Um, just like say like 9/11, things like that, or world events that change just and put more negativity in the air than was normally there. That is enough to do it. Because again, it's more fuel for something. But I remember when I used to, before I did the negative stuff, I used to tell everyone at lectures that you have a better chance of getting eaten by a shark at the Jersey Shore than being attacked by demons. And it's only happened once at the Jersey Shore, so pretty once in like over 100 years. That's pretty good odds. Um, Now I wouldn't give that analogy at all, because that would be that wouldn't be a little tiny white lie. It would be just real bad lie, because it's a lot worse than that. And I know I'm going to see more because I know I do more of those cases, so I'm going to see more of it. But I do see the other cases coming in, and I can see the
Yeah.
percentages. And we also would go on cases, and some people were just, one of the first things I look at when we go into someone's house is on our questionnaire, they've given us the list of medications they're on. I look to see if there's any other medications that they didn't list. Or I look at the bottles and see the dates that are on there, and it's a full bottle, but they got it 3 months ago. They're obviously not taking it as prescribed, which is another question we ask. So then then I have something to go with saying, hey, look, you're not following that. If you listen to the doctors, take everything the way they want you to take it, and then you're still having activity in 2 or 3 months, then we'll come right out, because now we've eliminated something. But right now, I don't know what the difference is, because obviously you're supposed to be treated for something, and you're not taking the things they want to treat you with. So I can't take that risk of if it's one thing out of 10 that's actually the bad stuff, and the other 9 I'm chasing down for no reason, and I'm not putting 100% on the thing that actually I need to focus on. So I'm wasting time, but I may be wasting time, and you never know how much time they have till it progresses to another step. They may already be like an oppression. Possession is rare. It doesn't necessarily have to get that far for damage to be done. Oppression is enough to make some people take their own lives, or wind up having mental breakdowns completely, or just shutting themselves down and becoming like a recluse, antisocial, not trusting anybody or anything. I mean, then their job is done. Like if they've taken someone who was a normal human being and turned them into that, they can move on to the next person. It doesn't always involve possession or killing them. It's like a cat playing with its food. Like my cat just caught a mouse the other day, and it let it go 5 times before it got him. It's like, why? Just kill the mouse. Get rid of it. Don't play with it.
Well, that would be too humane, right? That would be too.
But that
would be too kind.
It's like it was like torturing it over and over again, and that always reminds me of like a good analogy for what what they do. So it's like they don't want to get rid of it. You're a toy. They're having too
Yeah.
much fun until they've gotten tired of it. They've already done the damage to it, and move on and find another one.
Yeah. That's nuts. It's honestly nuts. Like just the whole I don't know, like there's so many different perspectives that I never would have seen before with demonology and this side of things. Like I said, when you're growing up, and like I'm Christian, so just standard Christian faith, there's heaven, there's hell, that there's things that exist, there's things that are out there, but it's not until you really start to kind of grow into that faith and then start to kind of learn more about the paranormal that there's so much more depth to it, and it gets pretty jarring and just pretty scary, how dangerous it can get so quickly and so out of hand.
I think if more people understood that, there you might have less people out there doing this, but the
Yeah.
people that would be there would be the most careful and respectful people, the people that you'd want. Like when
Yeah.
you're calling someone to come out to your house, that's who you hope comes out, not the
Yeah.
people that threw together a Facebook page that looks awesome, and that's why you called them, because they look like they're very professional by the way they present themselves, but behind
Yeah.
that, they have no idea what they're doing and shouldn't be coming into your house and making things worse for you. So
Yep. Yeah.
it's something we wish for, but we're never going to be able to go back in time and change that. So it is what it is now.
Yeah. And
Hopefully,
that's just you try and educate, you try and give people the right knowledge that they do better.
and
And
you hope that by
hopefully,
passing that along to people, that it'll stick with some people, and then they pass it along to other people. So I mean, there's a lot of good people out there that are doing things for the right reasons and being taking precautions and stuff. But
Yeah.
it doesn't take many bad people to make things bad for all of us. I hate doing a
that
cleanup. I hate going behind another group and having to clean up. There's a lot of people in the field that will not go clean up behind another group because they don't want
Yeah.
to. They don't know what they did to make it worse. You have to figure out
Yeah.
what they did, plus what originally happening, and sometimes that's impossible, all because of what they did.
Yeah.
And I just I feel like I can't turn those people away. I got to at least try. But there's a lot of times it's been screwed up too much where you're never going to get to the bottom of it now.
Yeah. Absolutely. One of the, other things that I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about was you have a gift, and I'm always looking for, opinions and just insight to how your gift works and what advice you can kind of give to other sensitives like yourself, because everybody, I've always been a firm believer that there's tons of us out there. Everybody truly has the gift to one extent or another. It just is how they have it. And I think everybody's is kind of like their own little fingerprint. It's like a signature. There's things that I feel like I'm sensitive with and I can pick up on, but I'm not so much gifted in maybe like auras and all that kind of stuff. But what are your gifts specifically, and how have you used them like in this field? Tell us a little bit more about your views on that, what you've experienced as a psychic.
I've never gone into any place. Well, I can't say never. Um, I usually don't go into places and try to read anything.
Mhm.
I try not to use it, honestly. I pick up a lot of emotions, so like there's the empath part.
Okay.
I've been seeing things visually since I was 3.
Mhm.
So the seeing thing and the hearing and the feelings, I can't control anyway. So if
Yeah.
I'm opening it up, again, I get concerned about opening it up too much.
Yeah.
So if I am trying to minimize that as much as I can, I'm still going to pick up some stuff that's the strongest.
Yeah.
So I'm like basically putting multiple coffee filters to filter out
Yeah.
stuff and just get the best stuff through.
Yeah.
And that's always been okay for me. I
Okay.
know other people like to go and they open up, but I think because of how terrified I was growing up, because I didn't become okay with it until I was in my 20s, where I started meeting people and realizing it wasn't just me and not everything was like the horror movies on TV, because that's the only thing. There was no books except there was Hans Holzer books, and that was about it. There wasn't many other books out there that didn't paint ghosts in a horrific way. All the horror movies on Saturday afternoon, these things are out to kill you. So I was terrified, and I think I still have some of that hesitation where I don't necessarily go in and try to pick up on stuff as much as I possibly could. I think I never have opened up 100%, just because I guess it's a healthy respect for the potential of bad stuff happening, along with that fear that just was, grew from childhood. I didn't do any psychic protections for years. I didn't know anything about it. And when I was first introduced to it, I used to call it hocus pocus mumbo jumbo. It's nonsense. You tell me I'm going to put a couple stones in my pocket and I'm going to be protected. I thought if I say a prayer, that's it. It's like, I didn't understand that layers works better, like a bulletproof vest. You're not just relying on one layer of something to protect you. You do, I have crystals right now. I got Palo Santo. I don't know if you guys can see that. Palo Santo.
Oh, that's pretty.
It's got Exorcised Blessing, Saint Benedict metals, and black tourmaline. So
my favorite.
So I have layers of stuff right there just on this one thing. So I'm covering 3 different layers of different things, and I always do a visualization. So I got 4 layers just sitting here talking to you guys. And if I wasn't talking to you guys, I was sitting here watching TV, I'd still have those 4 layers up, because you never know where anything is going to come at any time.
Let's see. Hold on, I'm going into my show and tell box. Oh, I got something. So, I'm super bad. I honestly should take, more, probably, better care of them. Let's see. My daughter may have moved them. This is she broke the lid off of my special box. But because she loves to play with them, and, she just loves them, the energy and everything. This is my little,
oh my god,
my little show and tell. I was very excited because I was like, oh, he showed us his bracelet. So, I have all my little crystals in this, see-through box that I can Costco size charge them under the full moon on my windowsill.
There's crystals everywhere in the house. I have the yard gridded with tourmaline. I have the house gridded with stuff. Selenites everywhere. So it's the same thing, layers. I don't have this one form of protection even in the house. I have multiple things.
Yeah.
Even my wife is more, although she'll never admit it, but she's more Jewish than she is Christian. She doesn't, the whole Jesus thing is a problem for her. So her dad was Christian, or Jewish, so she believes more of that. So we have things around the house like mezuzah and Star of David and stuff, and I put that stuff up right with the crosses and everything. And a lot of people get freaked out about that, but I have to tell them that, Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and all the apostles were Jewish, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's okay. I think they'll be okay with that hanging there and a cross on the wall, same wall. They'll be fine with it. But
and really just the intention, like you said, the faith. I mean, there's nothing more beautiful than 2 religions coming together and that faith being super strong in your house.
And that just strengthens it even more. So, but that doesn't mean, I understand, that doesn't mean nothing can get in.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to give it the most difficult time possible getting in. So maybe it just gets deterred and decides, it's not worth the effort or whatever. But that's, everybody that's sensitive should be doing that all the time for themselves and at home. And I'm not telling them not to go on investigations, but just be aware that you are a bigger target out there. So you need to be more prepared. That's why that protection is critical. And I know there's a lot of people that have been doing it for years and they don't do it, and they'll tell people it's not necessary. But honestly, it's only necessary once. The one time that you really needed it, that you didn't do it, then you have a problem. And then it's not going to matter what the other people told you. You didn't do it. You didn't just take that precaution. That's all it is. It's a precaution. Don't go in the water without, go on a boat without a life vest. It's probably not going to sink, but if it does, you have a life vest on. So it's, It's just a precaution. It may be
It
annoying.
helps.
It may be just an annoying precaution that you have to wear this thing, but in the worst case scenario, you thought it through and it helped you. And
Yeah.
that's all I like to tell people, and just to get them to understand just that little bit, and then they're going to decide for themselves anyway. But if they understand that there could be repercussions and what those repercussions could be, I usually try to scare the people into doing the stuff, because that seems to work better. That telling them the
Oh
scary
yeah, fear is the best tactic.
and then they by the end of when I get my demonology class, by the end of it, I always look around. It's like some of these people they are going home and throwing their equipment out.
So what you're saying is that I need to wear an adult diaper to Dave's demonology class.
I could probably sell them at the door.
That would be, hey, that's a good marketing scheme.
That is.
Get your logo on, like, where, like, the kids' Pampers, they have like the brand on there.
There you go.
But it'll be like Dave's Depends.
Dave's Depends.
Shoot your pins.
No, but seriously, I mean, I really want to take one of your classes, because I think this is kind of the swift kick in the butt. I feel like this was the universe kind of saying to me, like, hey, you've been kind of being a little bit, excuse my language, but you've been kind of being like a dipshit about your gifts and not really taking care of things. So if you have like links or anything like that for your classes, I'm going to include them with this video, but then I also kind of want to sign up, because it sounds like there's a lot of really useful information, and I have to start being better about. I might take your grid idea, because that was really smart for my yard, and like just extra left.
And it's honestly, it takes 5 minutes to do.
Okay.
And people just don't want to take that extra effort because they think, oh well, it's outside. Well, anything that's inside came from outside, and so why would you just keep them, out of the yard? And then I do a hedge prayer, which puts up a hedge around, asking God to put a hedge around your house to keep things out. And I have the crystal grid. Then I do other things like, with the things on the walls and everything, crosses, scapulas, whatever, other crystals in every room. I have a selenite lamp in almost every room. So
I gotta get one of those.
Just little things like that, and just, that's easy. You just put it down, you forget about it.
Yeah.
And it's there doing its thing.
It's like you said, the layers.
Right.
Yeah.
So the more stuff, the more of an amusement park, kind of thing it's got to run through to get in and to get me. Yeah. Maybe I sense it before while it's out there. It's sending the alarm off, and I know something's coming, which is always good if you know something's coming.
Yeah.
It's a little helpful, but
it's helpful. It's a little scary. I always said, because my husband's like, what is it? Because there's been times where like I've woken up in the middle of the night and I'm like, it's nothing like negative, but it's just like a spirit. And he's like, doesn't that scare you? And I'm like, no, but like, I'm like, sometimes it's a little jarring, like when you're not expecting it. I said, but I'd kind of rather that than some of the things that I know are coming, because it's almost like we're going to go back to a shark reference here. It's like you're wading out in the water and you see the dorsal fin and you're like, oh crap, I'm probably going to get eaten. Like, you're just like, obviously I have the mentality that I'm like, I'm not going to let this thing do anything, and I'm the one with the control and the power here. Like, this is not, I try and keep that optimism and that strength, but like just knowing that it's coming at you, and that like that presence is there, you're like, oh, gosh.
See, I assume that it's always there and always coming at me. I think that's the way I deal with it.
Point.
Because I've gone and I've poked the bear multiple times, so it does poke back. It's attacked me in my house. It's going after my wife, which is a mistake because she handles them much better than I necessarily do. It's
you don't want to provoke that mama bear.
That's right.
Every woman has that inner mama bear.
And she's like the protector of the house, definitely. But I mean, it happens, and I don't get depressed that all that stuff I put out there, all the layers and everything didn't work. It's like maybe there was 3 of them that were going to come in and only 1 got through. I don't know. I don't know how much it worked unless I take it away and then see. Let's see what happens, which is ridiculous. So yeah, I leave them up. I still add to stuff and change things up. That's important too, changing things up, not always doing the same exact thing. because they can be like stalkers, and they're just watching you. They know you go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, you come home at 5, then you go eat dinner, then you watch a show. They have your whole schedule laid out. So in their mind, they know, okay, she's going to put on this bracelet, she's going to do this essential oil, she's going to do this prayer. And if you keep on doing it, they'll work out a way to just get around that. So if you constantly change it, there's no pattern, it's much harder to do. It's a lot of thought that goes into it, especially when you're
Yeah.
sensitive.
Yeah.
It's definitely important to do, because you don't want to have that. Just that it only takes one time, one bad incident to draw you into something that
Scares me.
it's gonna leave a mark.
Yeah. But this is good. This is good. I'm so happy. Like, even though it's scary, it's really good for our listeners, for us, even as we're starting to get more into investigating, to have this perspective and this knowledge, because sometimes I think when life kind of gets, I think the biggest thing, at least in my opinion for me, is life can be so busy that it's almost like when you have to do extra things, you're like, ugh, like, and you should. And it's like, you should, but you're just so tired and you're just like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And then it doesn't happen. And so just hearing that, like, all it takes is once, like that reiteration of like, don't let your walls down just because, you're maybe in a lazy mode or you're just like tired from life or whatever it is. Make it a conscious like effort to
And
protect
honestly,
yourself.
the more you do it, the less you even realize that you're doing it. It becomes just like waking up and brushing your teeth. It becomes just one of the things that you do when you get up, or before you go to bed, whatever you do it. And if you do it all the time before you go on investigations and when you come home, it's just part of the whole routine. And the more you do it, you won't forget it, because it is part of it's your habit. You've created a habit. And
It only takes 7 days to form a habit, I think, is what
there you
one
go.
of my doctors said.
So 7 days, that's all you got to do. And then you're protecting yourself 100% more than you were before.
Yep. All right.
Just don't get cocky with it and go like Penhurst and start screaming at all the spirits. That wouldn't be a good idea.
Oh my god,
Well, we just shouldn't do that. That's just like
No,
101.
that's
Let's
a
not do that ever. Don't ever provoke anything. Because I see a lot of that too. They're like, hey, people that don't believe, they like go somewhere, or like if you bring a friend with you and they're like, oh, I don't believe, like they say something stupid and you're just like, ugh. Like, I made a TikTok about it because it was one of those things where it's meant to be funny, but it was a background sound from Friday. And he's like, you're going to get me in trouble. And I'm like, that's how I feel sometimes, because as much as I love some of my friends, some of them are like, oh, you're so frou-frou. Like, I don't believe in all of that. And you're psychic and blah, 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 blah. And like, they make fun of me. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, that's fine. I said, if you want to be disrespectful and you want to provoke or whatever you want to do, God bless you. That's all I'm to say about that. Godspeed. God bless you. You do you. Safe to say, I shouldn't even say friends. These are people that have phased themselves out, because we can't surround ourselves with negative energy. But yes, I've come across that in my lifetime quite a bit, and I'm just like, come on, guys. Like, at what point, like, what is it going to take for you guys to maybe just respect it, even if you don't like it, even if you don't understand it, just respect it and like not provoke it.
Sometimes that's just, they see it on TV and they see everything turns out okay for those people, and they want to imitate the people that they see as experts or they idolize. And when I do my public haunts, that's probably my only rule I think I give, is no provoking. Because I tell people that I always give them the same example. It's people go to Gettysburg and they'll try to antagonize one side or the other. And what they never realize is some of those guys, maybe only a few of them, but some, were given a gun and bullets and told they could kill people without any repercussions. And they thought that was Christmas Day. That was the best day of their life. So you have someone that's a serial killer running around and with a smile on their face. Is that the spirit you wound up provoking? Because that spirit, the sign of the presence that spirit's going to give you when you ask for it, it's not going to be the same as other spirits. And you caused that. You did that. You invited that in. That was your intent, to anger one of those spirits. You just picked the wrong one. And that's all it takes, just that one time.
Which I'm so glad that you brought up Gettysburg. So I know that we're coming up on like an hour and a half here, but I have to, maybe our final topic. Gettysburg is like my husband's like Disneyland. Like I brought him there once when we first started dating, 'cause he had talked about it, and ever since then I think we've spent like 55% of our life there. He is like obsessed with it. He does the history stuff, whereas like I'm more of the, obviously, the ghost, supernatural, and maybe a little bit of shopping sprinkled in. But one of the things that I've always had heated debates with people about, because it makes me really frustrated. Have you been to Sachs Bridge?
Yes.
What is your thoughts on Sachs Bridge?
The energy that I felt there didn't feel any more or less than I feel going anywhere in Gettysburg. There's
Okay.
I try to I tried to shield as much as possible, because even when you just get on the outskirts of town, Gettysburg and all the stuff that went on there isn't just within the park. It's everywhere. So
Literally.
there's that negative feeling, but I know all the people that I've seen pictures, all the things people have said they've happened there. I didn't get like a sudden feeling, wow, this is special, or there's something more here, or even didn't even pique my interest. I mean, we were there, we were walking around. It's like it was just a bridge,
Okay.
and no one reported anything when we were there. So I might have just been there on a night when nothing was happening, but
Yeah.
it didn't seem anything different to me.
Okay. Where in Gettysburg do you think that you felt the most activity?
I think, well, down, it's right in the middle of all the shops, right where you get that V that veers off Baltimore.
Is
Pipe.
that by like the 1863 and like
Yeah.
O'Rourke?
Well, I had a store right there actually in the 1863 where those little shops are. That goes
Really?
there for a little bit. Then we were in the Jenny Wade birth house.
Okay.
But
Wait, so you were where Jolene Riley, oh, I think that's her name.
yeah,
Does she own Jenny Wade's birth house now?
the birth house.
The birth house is not like the actual Jenny Wade house. It's the one that's up the
Yeah, I know.
street.
Right, that one is the one that she was our partner in renting that out.
Okay, because I was gonna say when I went in there, the downstairs has like the ghost hunting equipment. So was that you?
Depends on when you were there. Not recently.
Maybe like 2016, 17.
Yeah, that was probably us then.
Oh, cool. Okay. I saw because is it Ghost Stop?
Yeah.
Ghost Stop.
I
Yeah,
know.
because
We're a Ghost Hunter store.
okay.
That's Ghost Stop is one of my competitors, I guess, but I sell some of their stuff too. So we're the old school ones. We're the ones that have been around the longest.
I remember when I saw yours though, the emblem, like I was like, I've seen that somewhere. And so now that's probably why. Because I was wondering if like maybe there's another one that she was connected to that was across from O'Rourke's. Not Jenny Wade's birth house, but there was another one. And I wasn't sure if you were part of that either.
The one that was there, we were there first by O'Rourke's. We were right across the street in that little that little village there. We were there's a big round, or not round, but weird shaped building. It's all red. And so whenever you walk in, it's like you're staring right at it. We were there first, and that didn't work out. But I'm trying to think. It was probably around the same time. It's the same year. We were there for a little bit, and then we partnered up with her and moved to the Jenny Wade birth house, which was a lot smaller than what we had at the other place. We're traveling from Philadelphia though, so it was hard to keep up with everything going, the traveling. Even though we were paying the staff, there was people down there working it. Just coming in and constantly checking on it and everything was just too much to do.
That's hard.
But I'm trying to. Jenny Wade House. I have memories of Jenny Wade House. I filmed there with Ghost Detectives, and I remember just times where we had multiple pieces of equipment all set up on the first floor, going from one room around to the other, and all of them lit up and at the same time when something was happening. Like we heard something, and all of a sudden, boom, and different types of equipment. Static meters, EMF meters. So it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't like a sudden surge of electricity or anything, because it wouldn't trip certain meters. It was all of them all lit up. It happened a couple times when we were there, and you just felt like you knew the way the air was.
Yeah.
Is almost like it was like charged in a way. At least that's how I was picking it up. That you knew you were in the middle of it. Stuff was right there and all around you. I didn't see anything, but I could feel just that, and just the emotion. It was like being in a washing machine and someone pours in a bunch of negativity and you're just being swirled around. That's kind of what it felt. So that's the most intense I've had in Gettysburg.
The reason that I asked you that question was because with Gettysburg, I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's residual, but I also have a theory that because of all of the supernatural stuff that has been kind of promoted there and brought there, there's been such a high influx. And like I've come across people who are just very blatantly dabbling. Like we've been to like investigations where people are like provoking and they're yelling into a spirit box, and and it's, you can feel the energy change pretty quickly. And I feel like it's opened kind of like a just multiple portals like all over Gettysburg, where it's just drawing in a lot of just, I wouldn't say like anything demonic. It's more of like just a lot of like low vibrational.
You can see it even with the people that, I agree with you totally. You can see with the people that are there. One of the reasons why we didn't go back and stick around was just a good example of the negative mindset that people get there. Was all the tours. When we moved in, we said we are Switzerland here. We're neutral. We put a big thing out where all the tours could put their flyers out, all of them. They would come in during the day, like one at a time, take everyone else's stuff out and just fill it up with all theirs. All day long, we just see them doing it. And finally, we just took the whole thing down and said, this is like nonsense. And then we got people mad at us because we must secretly be pushing in one of the other tours if we're not promoting theirs. And it really tends to, get a little crazy there at times. And I think that's because of just the overall energy that's there.
There's a lot of like low vibration. My husband, he's definitely, since obviously getting with me, like, and us dating and then getting married, it's been about 8 years. So in those 8 years, he's grown exponentially in his, seeing the spiritual paranormal side of things. But when we would first go, he just like never really understood why like I would take like 5 or 6 naps like in our time there. He's like, are you gonna sleep the entire time that we're here? And I'm like, you don't understand. I'm like, I am doing my best. It's not that like I don't want to walk around and do stuff on the field and be, like a fit hiker girl. Like I want to do all of these things. I'm like, I would love that, but I've tried to explain to him, it's very hard, especially when you're sensitive, to go to places that have such a mass history like that, and then on top of that have those layers of people coming in and not doing things the right way, and then bringing in other stuff on top of that residual stuff, and then it just kind of like piles on and it drains you. Like it, I don't know if you had felt the same way, but I just, wanted to ask, because when you brought up Gettysburg, I'm like, ooh, I have somebody else's brain to kind of pick about this.
Gettysburg can definitely be tiring. It's one of those places that's like that, like you said, with you're going through all those layers of stuff, and you don't necessarily even realize that your ability is doing that. But it's
Yeah.
like cutting through thicker stuff that you normally would go through. So it's taking more energy that you don't even realize you're expending until you're almost tapped out, and you have to like keep recharging.
Yeah.
So it's there. I mean, that's probably the best example that everyone understands that,
Yeah.
and they know the location, they know what the history of it. But what you said about people keep bringing stuff in, I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
And I think there's I think there's probably more people that just don't talk about it, that just have the same things where they just feel overly tired. They don't stay up as late as they usually do there, things like that, because
Yeah.
it takes a lot out of you. Unless
Yeah.
you're used to it and you somehow acclimate to it, you're
Yeah.
not, it's kind of constantly do that to you. See,
I never
there's
really go ahead.
maybe a different shielding that you're doing when you go there.
That's
Something
what I
different.
think. Yeah, I definitely think I need something different, because like I didn't start picking up on it until probably like our like fourth or fifth visit there. I thought maybe honestly, I thought I was just laying on the tacos a little too heavy, and like I hadn't been working out. I'm like, oh, it's just me being, of the thick variety. I was like, I need to get in better shape, and everything was tiring me out. And then I was like, probably like our sixth, seventh visit there, I was like, I don't think so, because like this is like energy exhausting, like a different kind of energy. This isn't like, I'm just really tired or I'm fatigued or something like medical, because I started taking B12, I checked my iron, like, and I was like, why is it that when I come here, and I had that aha moment where I was like, oh, that makes sense. That, like, I don't know why I didn't think of that to begin with. And so I definitely have to work on. We haven't been probably, forget the last time we went. It's been a little while now. But I definitely think that's a smart idea, to figure out something different to kind of maybe just as a buffer keep those
I mean, it's
yucky
worth a
sludge.
try. I mean, you already know what's going to happen if you don't, so you'll be able to tell by changing it up a little bit. You should know right away whether that's working or not,
Yeah.
and just keep tweaking it until something does.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I have had so much fun kind of chatting with you today, and talking about I still feel like there's so many layers we could peel back with you. So we might have to bring you back for a part 2 at some point, or even maybe
Yeah,
just
I'm
do a
open to
live.
that, definitely.
Yeah, because I feel like I could pick your brain all day. But I appreciate you, giving us so much of your time so we can chat and give some just, great education and knowledge to our listeners. So we have a saying that we kind of wrap up all of our podcasts with. We ask our guests to join us. So we usually say, until next time,
Oh no.
everybody, let's get weird. But I think we should switch it up. So maybe we'll start with you, Dave. Well, since we're breaking in, we're christening StreamYard for our first broadcast in a little bit. Let's actually change it. We're gonna keep it. What should we say, Taylor? Let's stay weird, or stay weird. Until next time, everybody, stay weird.
Stay weird, yeah.
Yeah. All right. How's that sound?
That sounds good.
Cool. All right. So until next time, everybody, stay
Stay
weird.
weird. And it's okay, Dave, because we never ever
We
sync
never
it up
get
with
it.
any of our
Never get
guests.
it synced.
Even when we're on our own time, it never syncs up.
Yes, but so a couple of things we didn't touch upon, but I'm going to link it in both videos. Dave, you are an author and you've written some books, correct?
Mhm. Yep.
And then I'm gonna link his website so you guys can really check him out and get to know him. And then yeah, if you're having some serious spiritual issues, Dave is you would be a good resource for people to reach out to in need by
Absolutely.
visiting your website. Okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So we'll get all that information to you guys. Be sure to check him out, and hopefully maybe we'll get a part 2 going in the future.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Have a great night, everybody.